Hey y'all, it's your girl Jada, Rayne, and welcome back to episode 3 of season 2 of course, No Brew Shit. Go ahead and grab your cups and take a sip because we're gonna dive right in. And before we get this conversation started, let me go ahead and click into my Zoom meeting so we can meet our very special guest.
Hi, my name is Mica Caine. I'm born and raised in Columbus, Ohio, and currently reside here now. I'm the co-founder of a platform called Mive, which is a size-inclusive and slow fashion e-commerce marketplace, helping every woman shop more ethical, sustainable brands that fit every time. I'm also a product manager at Pinterest, and I'm super excited to be here.
So kind of just hop in because you mentioned slow fashion. So I really want to get into the terminology.
So fast fashion, when I say fast fashion, I'm referring to the process of making clothing, trendy clothing, kind of stealing like runway looks and popular looks, and producing them as cheaply as possible. If you're familiar with Fashion Nova, Pretty Little Thing, Shein, I can go on, but also Gap, Forever 21. So really any manufacturer that kind of creates clothing at a large mass-produced scale is fast fashion. And you know, a lot of the qualms that I have with fast fashion, and many people have with fast fashion, is because at the scale that they produce, it's their, you know, that $17 shirt, that $20 dress really comes from underpaying garment workers, having very dangerous factory conditions, as well as a waste cycle that is so unsustainable and harmful to our planet. So slow fashion is the alternative. Slow fashion is the process of making clothing consciously, where fair labor is at the center, sustainable fabrics and clothing production is also at the center. So the 3 big pillars of slow fashion is ethical fashion. So that's all about labor and making sure that we're reducing harm to people as well as to animals. So no animal testing, also kind of like falls under that ethical pillar, as well as eco fashion, which is all about using recycled materials to make sure that we're using waste that's already out there, mitigate the amount of garments that are landing in a landfill, as well as processes like using organic cotton, for example, using non-toxic dyes. Under like the eco fashion pillar, it's all about reducing harm to the planet. So there's many different strategies to accomplish that. And then the last is lasting fashion. So if you can extend the life of a garment, the longer it would take for it to land in a landfill, or it never will at all. So when you think about like those statement vintage pieces like the jacket you're wearing, Jada, when something's made high quality, you know, it can last longer. Circular fashion speaks to specifically the process of thinking about a garment's end of life as well as like its start of life. So making sure that end of life is in mind when creating the garment. So circular fashion is all about how can we have a garment move circularly through the world, maintaining and repairing items so to extend its life, but also when at the end of its life, or when someone's done wearing the item or does not want to own it anymore, redistributing that item to another person, another organization. I will say that the term sustainability has been adopted by many different, like for and used in many different greenwashing campaigns. So I personally don't like to use it, but I think it's the terminology most people are familiar with.
I appreciate you kind of expounding on these terms. I think we hear them, but we don't know. Like for me personally, when I was thinking about fast fashion, I always think about quality. I always feel like those are always so synonymous. So it's nice to know the bigger picture. And I think like there were some companies I didn't even know would be considered as fast fashion, like Zara, places like that that we consider more like high quality than your Forever 21, but it's still in that same like bracket. So I think that's really interesting. And kind of to touch on, why do you feel like fast fashion is so appealing though to the mass?
I think it's mostly just there's a couple of things that come to mind, but I would just say the price point. A lot of times you see fast fashion retailers ripping off like very reputable designers that really craft and create garments, high quality garments that are not fashion over prices. So a lot of times people want to have like be able to sport the new trends, but not pay for a garment at a higher price point.
Right.
So I would definitely say price, speed. A lot of times the fast fashion retailers are able to, they have this really fast production cycle. So you can see like a trend one day and just see it in Zara stores the next. And honestly, so outside of cost, I would say size inclusivity. Although we don't see it at the surface, like you go to these sites and a lot of these models have very narrow size profiles. Yeah. But they do offer extended sizing. For example, like stretch jeans, you know, curvy women plus women want curved jeans or stretch jeans, but what are those stretch jeans made out of? Polyester, plastics that would never decompose. Right. So, you know, these fast fashion brands are typically at a price point, have those size offerings, and then also like celebrated in popular culture. The original like open letter that I wrote was originally addressing Meg The Stallion's Fashion Nova partnership. So we always hear Fashion Nova in Cardi songs, Meg songs, Sweetie songs. So it in a way it's fast fashion that if that's like the only affordable like retailer that you're hearing in music outside all these luxury fashion labels like Dior, um, you know, it kind of creates an appeal that, oh, okay, maybe I should wear this. Like maybe it's cool.
I feel like that's such a huge part of, like you said, their marketing strategy and how I think being immersed in the culture allows them, because as we know, the black dollar is valuable and they know that. So I feel like it's very purposeful. It feels very targeted. And I feel like kind of to go into the size inclusivity, although I feel like compared to what we've seen like in these runway shows and things like that in the past, I feel like at the same time it's kind of developed like a little bit of body dysmorphia. I feel like some of these fast fashion brands, because although we're showing curvier body shapes, we're showing a curvy body shape that has a super cinched in waist, an image that's very unrealistic. And I don't know if you want to speak to that at all.
I think it goes without, and I typically address like the Fashion Nova's Pretty Little Things, Sheins, and I can go on and on. And then specifically because they're fast fashion retailers that specifically almost exclusively cater to Black women of color, while the Zara's and the other retailers kind of have like a broader focus, but they're equally as harmful. I want to make sure that I say that. Yeah. But it is body dysmorphia. You go to Fashion Nova's website and most of their models there, had plastic surgery to achieve those looks. But if that's only what you're showing on your website, it's very harmful. And I think the fashion industry in general they're really promoted this concept of destination beauty. Like historically, like we're going to show you something that you should aspire to. Like you want to look like this girl, rather than celebrating what their customers actually look like and like celebrating real bodies. And I think it's super harmful. My twin sister and I, we both like growing up, our weight has always fluctuated. When I'm thinking about like me as a young girl, I did feel like there was a ideal body size. And these fast fashion retailers only perpetrate those ideas. What they're trying to do is capitalize off those insecurities.
And then not even just with body, but also skin tone. When you look at, and I know that's something that you mentioned in your open letter as well, like the type of representation that we're seeing. And I kind of peep, like, now that they've been under fire, a lot of these companies are now trying to throw, at least they'll put one girl who's dark skin or brown skin and then say, well, now we're being a little bit more inclusive with skin tone. But I think even in that sense, I mean, they don't show people, you know, of different shades and different sizes.
And it's really confusing because you see like these brands like looking for or striking these deals with like Real Housewives and different Black women of every skin tone to get them to promote the product. However, when it comes to the women that are seen on their site, it's all ambiguously like light-skinned women. So it's they're colorist platforms, they're colorist companies, and you know they aim to tokenize a dark skinned chocolate woman here and a dark skinned chocolate woman there. But at the end of the day, that's not representative of our community, and women of all skin tones should be celebrated. So it's it's one of the most disturbing things. Of everything that they do is disturbing, but I just like zero respect.
What's equally kind of disturbing to me too is, and I don't know if we should put the responsibility on celebrities, but I do find it kind of disturbing that so many of them readily support these brands and push this out, and it just kind of makes you feel like they're kind of prioritizing money versus their audience. And so I don't know, like, should we hold these celebrities accountable for taking place in these marketing strategies?
I believe so, because I am a proponent of when you know better, you do better. The same reason maybe a celebrity would decide not to support Donald Trump, it should be the same logic, right? There's always, you know, I believe, and I'm going to give Meg, Cardi, Saweetie the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they don't understand the scale of the harm of those fast fashion operations. However, but when you learn about how these retailers operate, you know, the ball is in your court to make a decision based on facts and based on values. So you know, a lot of the times, I mean, I'm not here to tell a Black woman how she should get her money, but when it comes to like these partnerships, I feel like you know what Meg could done was to start her own fashion line. Like, how powerful would it have been if Meg started her own sustainable fashion line? I want them to know that there's other options than just collecting a check from a fast fashion company, because a lot of other white celebrities aren't doing that. And I had a friend who was like, well, do you feel like, you know, Meg, Cardi is Black celebrities, like they're not offered the same opportunities as white celebrities? And I have to challenge that by saying no. You often, even though high fashion houses don't have like these fast fashion influencer type of relationships because they don't need to, you know, you see Meg in vintage Dior, you see Meg in Chanel, you see Meg in many different high marks. So I think that the options are there, but I think it's kind of branded as like an easy bag. And yeah, it's going to be something that, you know, we have to make sure that we're aligned on everyone. That's why building awareness is the biggest thing. So as we educate ourselves, we're also trying to, you know, promote more awareness for like the women that are already operating in these spaces. And so when Tiana Taylor took that position as director of marketing, I'm hoping that because of that, she'll be a little bit closer to the operations to see firsthand like the harms of the company and how they steal designs from Black designers and so on. So hopefully by her being in the inside, it will be clear like what's actually going on.
I hope so too. And I think that, yeah, you definitely, when you have a platform like that, you do have a responsibility, I guess, to offer a little bit of pushback. So, you know, take it that regular everyday person that doesn't make a lot of money, right? And then they see this campaign where they see a Megan Thee Stallion or they see a Cardi B that's, you know, endorsing something from Dior or Chanel, and they feel like that's out of their price range. And I feel like part of the appeal of when they use celebrities for fast fashion brands is if she can have it, but it's affordable enough for me to have it too. And so I guess how do we make it a little bit more accessible?
Yeah, and that's a great question, and it's something that's been explored a lot. And I
Mm-hmm.
just want to say, if a woman, I don't think any woman is obligated to buy anything out of their means. I do not, I have no right. And if anyone is telling you, as a woman with a very small clothing budget, where you should shop, I'm not here for that.
Yeah.
The success of the fast fashion industry is from women with disposable incomes.
Mm.
So I just want to say it's not poor women with lower means that are driving the success of fast fashion. It's women that do.
Mm.
So I think, I don't think that it's of good taste to address that. But I will say this: I think just in general, as being Western consumers, there is this there's this idea, right, that you have to get a new outfit for every occasion.
Mm.
And it's like these companies, these retailers are promoting this culture of like hyper consumerism, right? And by the time you buy 4 or 5 dresses or 4 or 5 outfits from Fashion Nova, that's a staple piece. So I think that if people are open to slowing down their consumption patterns, I mean, I think that's and I believe that that's one of the silver linings of 2020, right? We've been bored in the house, bored, not going anywhere, no function, nothing. So, and I think, and what we're seeing, women is looking for, statement pieces on Depop, Heroin, Grailed, Poshmark, or like investing in key pieces.
Yeah.
So I feel like, the foundation is there. We see a lot of women popping up with their new own vintage curated Instagram pages. So we're seeing more of that. So I think that when it comes to cost, um, outside of what's, aspirational and represented in music, I think there's a lot more options that people have than what they think. It's not fast fashion or luxury. It's, there's buying resale, buying a slow fashion brand. There's more and more slow fashion brands that are popping up that are more affordable. It's slowing down your consumption of clothing and really rethinking the relationship you have with clothing, because it shouldn't be oh, this is the outfit that I'm going to buy from Fashion Nova. Bam, I'm never going to wear it again. Like, I'm done with it. Like, it doesn't have to be such a transactional, single use cycle. And that's what we're trying to get people to understand.
I love that because I've never heard a term like that, like have a relationship with your clothing. Because I feel like nowadays you get shamed. Even I see celebrities get shamed, but you get shamed if it's like, ooh, you wore that once and now you're wearing it again. Especially in the age of social media, because you're sharing so much of yourself. I think it's kind of made that transactional relationship. So I think it's a beautiful thing to say have a relationship with your clothes, because there's some pieces you probably had since high school, middle school, and you're just like, I still love it. So I think that's a great way to put it. Kind of to transition, because we talked a lot about Western, and we will come back to Western impact, but like you said in the beginning, there's such an impact on people in all parts of the world, specifically Black and brown women all across the globe.
Whenever I get like the cost question, I always talk about like, when we talk about what does a Black middle class, like, does a Black lower class woman have the right to a $7 shirt, when that means that the other woman of color who's in Bangladesh, who is in Ethiopia, creating the garments, is being paid pennies to the dollar? Like, how does that make sense, right? There's still like a level of privilege when, if everyone's getting paid fair wages, anyone could afford a $60 dress.
Right.
But that's not what we're seeing. It's between 45 and 60 million garment workers globally that exist, and almost 80% of them are women of color. With that being said, we're seeing women being paid as little as less than $100 a month in wages, not even being paid a living wage. Multiple fires, the Rana Plaza incident that happened in Bangladesh when the whole factory caved in. There's so many instances of women not being able to conceive because of the fumes that they're inhaling in these factories. I would definitely suggest people take a look at the Clean Clothes campaign. Remake, the sustainable fashion form, gives you way more information. But all in all, not only are these workers exploited in wages, in working conditions, but also the it's the world's poorest people that see the effects of climate change firsthand, right? When we think about like landfills in Ghana, for example,
Yeah.
Or other countries, there are women that live like amongst this waste, right? There's people, families living amongst this waste that, us Americans, and that's the reason why I do not support donating my clothes to Goodwill, because oftentimes, if it's not something that sells in store, they just ship it over to another country and dump it. Um, and that's why you're kind of seeing, and this is a bit tangential, but the rise of fast fashion and all this excess clothing and this excess waste, you're seeing it getting shipped off to be sold in local markets, like in Africa, in East Africa. No one would be wearing t-shirts and jeans if Americans didn't ship their waste to other country, right? It's stifling local fashion and traditional dress. So I feel like that's also like and then also like for local designers, they can't compete with how cheap these items from America are in their local economies. So it's really stifling their local fashion industries as well.
Interesting. I watched this documentary a while ago about Brazil. They showed it. They showed a landfill and they showed how this was becoming a job for people. Like they would try to go out there and find things in these massive landfills. And it makes you so sad because it's taking so much up of their land. And like you said, it's harmful. But then also, it got me thinking, why is it that we feel so far removed being here in the US? We feel so far removed from those issues.
I think it's an education thing. And I love, so if you're not familiar with the Slow Factory, they're doing a lot of amazing work to, promote circularity, sustainability within the fashion industry and beyond. It's like an organization focused on human rights and environment or climate justice. So what Salena always talks about is landfills as a museum. The landfills are really an out of sight, out of mind thing for like Western consumers, would you say residents of Western countries? But when we understand, if we take the time to go to a landfill, look around, see them as a museum and seeing them as a resource, we can better understand that, wow, like this is only going to pile up. Like our waste output's only going to get higher and higher and higher to a point where anything that's made, for us to have a regenerative impact on our waste output, we're going to need to start using waste as a resource. So waste as a resource is like a area of study that's came about over the last 20 years of, okay, so how can, for all the things that we typically produce and manufacture in factories, how can we actually use items that are already wasted or already in a landfill, or prevent items going to a landfill to be used for something else? So I think that just when landfills are kind of like dismissed as like, oh, that's where our waste goes and it disappears and it's not a problem, it's fine. We need to understand like and see that as opportunity, because that's where inevitably, we can make the decision now or we're going to be forced to make that decision in the future. So I think it's all about getting ahead of that, but it comes to education. I don't know if you, back at IU, Jada, if you took any sustainability courses. I didn't. I was in business school. So, I took one like social enterprise course, but that was the most of that. It needs to be something ingrained in curriculum, starting in kindergarten, in my opinion. Regenerative culture and being able to have more circular use in everything. It needs to become more widely adopted and building awareness across, all of our education systems. And I think that's what it's going to come down to, awareness. Just as, we have this awareness around fast food and the harms of fast food, right? Like, it needs to be explored further so people can understand like its impacts in today's society.
while I think it's important to talk about the impact on, the planet, because that impacts humans, I think so often the discussion doesn't talk about the people that get directly impacted, like low pay, like health, issues. So I really love that. I feel like that has to be a part of the conversation too.
Absolutely. And I just want to quickly add this. As Black people, we're getting killed at record numbers. We're experiencing racism in our country. So I understand, you know, am I going to talk to like my good sis? I'm not, we're fighting so many battles. So sometimes to talk about sustainability in like a vacuum, if my, my brother, my friend, got killed by the police, for example, I'm not caring about how I can, compost these issues when our lives are in danger every single day. So I think that, and the thing is, the evil comes from the same place, right? Colonialism, yes, capitalism, yes, these wasteful institutions, and our ancestors, we were complete circular communities. Indigenous folks, tribal folks, indigenous knowledge tells us we need to get as many uses out of something as possible. Mm-hmm. There was no idea of waste. It was white people that introduced buy, use, waste. Mm-hmm. That's a colonial construct, mm-hmm, right? And that same construct was how they legitimized slavery. Yeah. So when you break it down and find the roots of these things, we see that, okay, these are the systems that we need to tear down to ensure that, not only are our interests protected from a human rights perspective, but we're also respecting the earth as well, because it comes from the same place. So I 100% agree when you say that, like, you can't just talk about sustainability in a vacuum. It's a human rights issue. It's a climate justice issue. It's an economic issue. It's everything.
We've talked a lot about impacts in, other countries, and I think, people feeling removed from this issue, but I think a lot of people don't realize, like, it's happening here as well. It's happening in the US, which I found really interesting. I mean, I just moved to California, so I don't know a lot about California, but I didn't know that this was such an issue, especially here, which I find interesting because California always prides itself on being so forward thinking and so liberal and far ahead of movements in terms of, like, sustainability and stuff like that. So, I mean, I guess they have factories that are doing the same thing here, if you want to touch on that.
Yeah. So I would say that LA is like probably one of the largest markets for clothing creation and just garment work here in the States. Mm-hmm. And just to give you a perspective, about 4 years ago, the U.S. Department of Labor launched an investigation of factories, garment factories in California and LA, and 85% had wage violations and perpetrated wage theft. Mm-hmm. So in the state of California, there's a $13 minimum wage, but a lot of retailers, actually, or factories, don't even pay their workers that, and they actually get paid by the piece rate system. So the Garment Worker Protection Act was introduced by Senator Durazo, and basically it was to eliminate the piece rate system. So garment workers would be paid by the piece of clothing they would produce. And then, like, there was one article that I read and talked about how, like, one garment worker was saying that she would work 60 to 75 hours a week just to get paid almost only $300. So the piece rate system is a way for these factories to get away around actually paying their workers fair wages. With this market having, like, a lot of undocumented immigrants, we just see there's a lot of people that are silenced by fear, and a lot of people don't realize, like, there's exploitation going on in our own country, and it's disturbing. And what we also see in light of COVID is a lot of like the pay up movement kind of was birthed out of a lot of these canceling orders due to COVID, and not being able to have the fulfillment or produce the sales they expected. So although these factory workers are, making all these garments, they're not even getting paid. So if you want to learn more about the pay up fashion movement, I encourage everyone to do more research and see the companies on that list. You'll be very surprised.
Part of me feels like maybe when we're able to fight it and have those conversations here, it'll be a lot easier for people then. Sadly enough, for people to then sympathize with it on a global scales when they feel like it's personally affecting them. And that's what I hate, but I feel like sometimes that's what it takes for us to address it in our own community, and then people feel more, I guess, equipped to deal with it on a global sense, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think that'll also be another step in the right direction.
Exactly. And it's really going to come down for more people to have awareness, and these companies like losing critical partnerships with celebrities like we talked about. It would really just take a couple, and I understand it's more nuanced than this, but it would just take a couple of celebrities to dismiss or walk away from these contracts,
Yeah.
and educate people like actually these companies are super super harmful and exploitive. So I think that there's like a pop culture element that could really accelerate change, but we're not seeing a lot of people speak out. So that's what I'm really trying to see this year, because I think that's going to make all the difference.
I would love to see that too, but I'm like, is it going to happen?
Yeah.
That's where I'm at with it. Is it really going to happen? I think sometimes when they get such a big platform, they become that famous. You almost get this disconnect away from where you were, or people that are not in the same place as you. It's like, okay, well, if I don't feel it, then it's not, it must not be that impactful. Sadly, I feel like that's how some of them think. So I would love to see them walk away, but sometimes I wonder, are they too far removed to even think in that way?
Yeah. And I think that's what it comes down to us. Like a lot of people say like, "Oh, it's not like consumers fight to fight and we can't, carry this burden, but it's, when we redirect our dollars and, we speak out on these platforms and like we create coalitions and mobilize, we can enact that change." So I think that, when celebrities and they start seeing that they're on the wrong side of history,
Mm.
that's when we're going to start seeing, big changes made. But it's gonna take a lot of work. So that's why we're my platform. We're just trying to continue to build awareness,
Mm-hmm.
um, so we can like mobilize together.
Yes. Close it with solutions. And,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times people say, let's build transparency. So Remake has a report slash stamp of approval for different companies, just telling you what companies are, sustainable. And so, do you feel like that is a possible solution, building transparency? And if so, what are other ways that we can build transparency on this issue?
Yeah, transparency. So yeah, they have a transparency report. I'm actually a Remake ambassador, so
Okay.
like I'm in their on their monthly community calls. It's like a great organization.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's a couple like Sustainable Fashion Forum also has, or the Clo Fashion Revolution also has like a transparency index. Um, but I think those are good starts. But I feel like that information needs to be, just from what I see, and I think there's a huge opportunity to like reach out to more people. It's all about the influencers within those organizations and like their reach that really determines their success. And I think that there's been thousands upon thousands, hundreds and thousands of signatures in like the pay up petition, but I just feel like we're missing like this pop. There's a significant opportunity for like pop culture partnerships around this. Our like transparency reporting from Remake and other organizations, is like that enough? And
Yeah.
is that going to drive change? Yeah, and I don't think alone, no, but I think in partnership with these organizations and expanding the message to more people outside like the niche sustainable fashion like
Mm-hmm.
folks.
Now that you have your own, brand, Mive, kind of talk a little bit about that and what you guys are doing to push that movement in the right direction.
Yeah, so I think we started the conversation talking about kind of like why do people purchase fast fashion, and it's cost, but we talked about size inclusivity too, how a lot of fast fashion brands have more size availability because a lot of slow fashion brands the essence of small batch manufacturing. And honestly, it's not even small batch manufacturing, just like a history of the fashion industry just not catering to plus women and women outside of straight size.
Right.
Um, it's super harmful. So Mive, we aim to, we're a platform, a marketplace where we capture women's measurements using an augmented reality measuring tape.
Mm.
So with 2 pictures of you, Jada, I will have over 160 measurements of your body. Those are stored so you can shop our marketplace of mostly BIPOC designers, slow fashion designers, and all their beautiful garments. And you can get items with bespoke fit every time. If the all most of the items sold within our marketplace are made to order and made to measure, and as well as brands that offer extended sizing. So we're trying to make slow fashion accessible to women of all sizes, as well as we have, although we still play in like the premium luxury space, we have many items over under $100, for women to purchase. So our soft launch of the marketplace is January 31st. We're launching to a small group of shoppers, and then our nationwide launch is February 26th. So please stay tuned. We've already have onboarded about 5 brands, and looking to expand to 5 to 10 more ahead of our launch. So we're super excited for that, and really the goal is to create a community that's aware, and then really like reach Black women. So we aim to curate like a fun eclectic pieces, not just like the earthy vibe, which I think a lot of sustainable brands have that approach. So we want to make sure that we're just because you're shopping slow fashion doesn't mean like a style is determined for you. You can find any type of clothing that's made ethically and sustainably. So, our partner brands, we're super excited. We have Sylvie Sarant, the founder of Body NYC, which is beautiful dead stock leather togs. Aisha Dunson, who's the founder of Azela, these beautiful loungewear sets. And actually, Gabrielle Union was just seen in one. And then like Akila Stewart, the founder of Fatras, she makes these luxury handbags from recycled plastics and use fabric from Fab Scrap, which is like a fabric recycling service. So we're like, our brand partners are really doing some innovative, cool stuff, defining like what fashion is for the future. So super excited, and can't wait to share more. So for everyone watching, please check us out at Mive Fashion, MIVE Fashion on Instagram, and our website is mive.fashion. So
Yes.
we'd love to have more people within our community.
Congratulations to you. I'm just really excited for what you guys are going to do to change the industry. I really believe that. I just love how you guys are reimagining that image of sustainable fashion and making it so it's not, like you said, it's not just an issue. Oftentimes it's been whitewashed, I feel like, in a way. And so it's just beautiful to see that, sustainable fashion is for the girls too. It's for us too.
Right,
I'm glad
exactly.
to see it. I'm so excited. Can't wait for the soft launch. And I am so happy for you guys. Thank you for coming on my platform. I had so much fun today. Okay, let me click out of this Zoom meeting. Thank you guys for joining another episode of No Brew Shit. Tune in a couple of weeks. I'll have another episode for you guys. As Mica said, if you want to learn more about sustainability fashion and what all of this entails, go ahead and head to her platform. It is Mive Fashion. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you guys in another episode. Bye.